Okay, so if we're talking fast air, obviously the first and easiest is just blow harder. But there's a lot of different options in terms of getting that where you don't want it super loud. Or you're trying to get really, really high, and eventually you run out of how much harder you can blow. And so the other piece of the puzzle is an arched tongue. So what happens if this is the roof of your mouth, and here's your tongue or whatever, if it's a low, you've got a large space, and this is going to be slower air, relatively speaking. As you arch your tongue, this creates a smaller space right here, and that speeds up the air. This is a Venturi effect. And so as you go higher and higher and higher, you get less room, and it speeds it up and speeds it up. So I think about vowel sounds, and I think a lot of people talk about it in terms of that. So it's like an ah for your lowest note, and then as you go up, eventually you get to kind of an ah, is maybe around like a G or a C in the staff. And then between an E and a G above the staff, it's getting closer to an I or an I mix. And then getting closer to a C, it's like an I mix. And you can feel when you go from an I, E, the middle of your tongue a little bit towards the back is getting higher and higher. And then when you get eventually to an E, that's when you're talking double G on higher. And so the trick on this is to balance that with how high you're doing it and try to find exactly the right spot. If you try to play in the middle of the register, like a G or a C in the staff, and you're going E, it's going to sound horrible. And I think that most of the time, if people have an argument against this, that's the thing, is they're saying, oh, well, you want this big open resonant chamber, and that is true. But that's kind of balanced with trying to find the best tone and still be able to get fast air so they're able to maintain the speed. My favorite exercise for this is we're just a two-note slur. You can start on a G or a B. Actually, I actually like going from the upper to the lower, the B. So if we're going to play a B, and we're going to do a 1 and 3 on this one, so this is an optional fingering for a B. And so here you're going to go with the higher tongue position, and then you drop down to the ah. So and as you do this, you want to try and focus on getting the job done with the tongue. You can do this with firming up your lips, but the goal now is really to focus on the tongue and jaw and minimize the movement, and then just for this exercise, minimize the movement of the corners. And you can do that slow, slow, slow at first, then build up the speed bit by bit. The other one you could do, besides going to slow to fast, is also go low to high, and so do the same thing from a 1 and 3 combination to a 2 and 3, that's C and A flat, 1 and 2 with the C sharp to an A, and then the D to B flat, E flat to B, and E to C, and you start working up high. But this is the kind of thing where you don't push yourself past for the point you know that the tongue is doing its thing, and you can hopefully feel the effect of it. If you have a hard time with that one, sometimes people get a little bit of resistance in between. It's feedback from the horn that's like, no, I don't want to play in between a G and a B. And the horn doesn't. That's fine. You can start doing this if you want with the mouthpiece partially out, and then that doesn't block you from playing in between the two as much. It feels more smooth, and there's less of a hitch point in the middle. And if you do that, then you get the movement, which is exactly the same. You get that movement mastered, and then eventually, instead of going halfway out, you do the thing where it's 2/3 of the way in or 3/4, and then 7/8 or whatever. And eventually, hopefully, you've mastered the movement. You can do the mouthpiece all the way in, and you start getting good at that. But the whole time, the point of this thing is trying to get the arched tongue to the normal and try to find exactly where it needs to be able to get that best sound and just make it pop back and forth between the high and the low.